Hello, everyone, and welcome to my presentation. I am Marco Agustin Mamba from the Center for Preparatory Studies at Sultan Qaboos University here in Oman. Today, I would like to share with you the findings of my research based on the insights from 638 EFL learners here in Oman. The study looked into the students' motivation, the strategies that they use in learning, the challenges that they face, and how these variables correlate to their perceived learning achievement in the foundation program. My presentation today is guided by one simple question. Is motivation enough for students to successfully learn in English? To start answering that, let's try to look first into the reason why is it important for us to listen to students' voices in the foundation program. Well, the foundation English programs are high-stakes transition programs. It is at this stage where students begin to think, to read, to write, to speak in English. And because of this, students could feel an immense pressure, and the result to their studies could be gatekeeping. Because of this, we have to understand that learning English at this stage doesn't just involve academic or skill-based challenge, but rather it is intertwined to the students' motivation, emotion, and even their identity. Now, critically, these conditions exist in the United States as well, and the rest of the world in general, when it comes to the intensive ESL and bridge programs. So what is the lesson that we learn when we listen to students' motivation, to students' challenges, to students' learning experiences inside the classroom? By doing so, we are able not only to improve the way we teach inside the classroom and improve our textbooks to become more appealing to students, but more so and more importantly is that we are able to support the establishment of an equitable and effective English education that would really cater to the needs of these students. So if students' voices are important, what do they actually tell us, and where does the problem really begin? Some of us would think that motivation is enough for students to successfully learn in English. But our data shows that over 80% of students surveyed reported being motivated, yet their perceived progress varied widely. And the more concerning issue is that of the 80% motivated learners, they actually tell that they experience limited improvement. So we see in here that motivation is not the issue. It is how the students learn what they need to learn. And that gap is what this study focuses on. So what did we actually study? This study looked into the following variables: the levels and types of student motivation, the factors that affect their motivation and demotivation, the strategies that they use in learning, and of course, included in that are the challenges that they face, their perceptions of their progress, and how the relationships of these variables, motivation and strategy use, as correlated to their perceived learning achievement. Now, to understand these connections very well, let's look briefly into the context of our study. So we studied 638 undergraduate students enrolled in the 6 intensive English language courses in the foundation program in Oman. And it was conducted during the academic year in 2024, the full academic year in 2024, both spring and fall semester. Now, the critical or the important issue here is not where the study was conducted, but rather how is this context relevant outside Oman. See, in our context, English serves two different factors or two different things. First is that it is a gatekeeper to student success, and it is an enabler, or it enables them to become more successful when they move after the foundation program. Now, this context is comparable to US intensive ESL and bridge programs. That means that what we found in terms of students' motivation, learning strategies, and challenges, and how they correlate to their perceived learning achievement is not only true in Oman, but rather it travels. It is true to all intensive ESL and bridge programs, including there in the United States and the rest of the world. Now, with this in mind, let's turn into the framework we used in this study, and we try to understand how motivation and strategy use become learning. In this study, we integrated rather three different frameworks. The self-determination theory, which talks about the quality and sustainability of students' motivation. L2 motivational self system, which talks about how students perceive their future English selves or identities and the strategies that they use in learning. Now, putting these three together, we come up with a simple model that motivation starts learning, but strategies turn it into success. Now, let's unpack that one by one by looking more closely into the three different frameworks. According to SDT, motivation grows, or learners feel motivated when they have control over their learning choices, when they feel confident in their ability to do what they are asked to do, and when they get support from their teachers and peers. In our data, interaction with teachers and peers was especially important for students. On the flip side, they view burnt out, fear of failure, and low confidence as key demotivators. So, looking at this, we can deduce that motivation isn't just internal, but rather it is emotionally and socially shaped inside the classroom. But motivation isn't just about the present classroom. They are also guided by who they imagine themselves to become in English, the L2 motivational self system. According to this theory or framework, um, English has three roles: the ideal self, who they want to become in English, the external expectations and pressures that they experience, and the daily classroom activities and realities that they face inside the classroom. Our strongest results was for my future, which was reported by 68% of our respondents. So, meaning to say that for many learners, English is closely related to identity and imagined futures. So, English learning isn't just about exams, but it's all about their future, who they will become in the future. Now, if motivation is about who students or who they want to become, what do they actually do in order to achieve that goal? According to Oxford Taxonomy, there are different strategies that students use in learning. Our data shows that students reported the following strategies they use when they learn: cognitive strategy, which includes practice and note taking; social strategy, which includes asking help from peers and teachers, managing their anxiety and motivation. But the most reported strategy being used is metacognitive strategy, which includes planning and time management, which was reported by 40.3% of the respondents, goal setting at 37%, and revision and monitoring at 28.4%. So based on this data, we find out that students who actually plan and who manage their learning, who know how to plan and manage their learning, actually experience more effective language learning than those students who just actually try harder. So in order for us to be able to study these strategies carefully, we needed to have a reliable way of collecting data. So our data was collected from an instrument that was developed over 4 semesters from students' interviews and feedback from teachers. It was piloted in spring 2023 to 120 students. It was reviewed by experts, and this particular instrument had multiple response checklists, ranking tasks, and single item scales. To establish its reliability and validity, we have pilot tested it in spring 2023, as was mentioned. It was conducted on 2 different cohorts in spring and fall 2024, and it was reviewed by expert to confirm the validity. To analyze the data, we use descriptive statistics. We use mean rank comparisons and Spearman correlation to be able to see the correlation between motivation, strategy use and challenges, and perceived learning achievement of students. So now let's turn into what students told us about their motivation. About 80% of students were either moderately motivated or extremely motivated, and the rest reported being low motivated or not motivated at all. Now, the reasons that they gave why they feel motivated includes future academic and career goals at 68%, learning something new in English at 55.8%, interaction with teachers and peers at 55%, and grades, all right? Grades came in secondary only. So motivation is mainly future-oriented and relational, not only institutional. But motivation isn't just about starting it. It's also about sustaining effort. So what sustains students' motivation? They mentioned goal setting and self-monitoring at 37.1%, fear of failure and academic pressure at 27.9%, enjoyment and classroom interaction at 21.3%. So motivation here, based from this data, we can conclude that motivation is a mix of hope and emotional tension. And our job as teachers is to make that tension productive, not paralyzing. Of course, not all emotions help learning. Some actually block it. Now, what are some of the reasons the students gave why they are demotivated? Well, they said that they mentioned the following reasons for lack of motivation. Lack of interest, they don't find, the things that they are doing that they are doing inside the classroom interesting, afraid of failing, burnt out and overload, and low self-confidence. The key point that we can derive based from this data is that demotivation is mostly affective and psychological, not institutional. So improving learning doesn't only require emotional, rather, it doesn't only require academic support, but at the same time, it should involve emotional support as well. And those emotions actually could help determine what particular activities students like to do inside the classroom. Based on the results of based on the data, rather, that we have gathered, students prefer teacher-led instruction, speaking activities, and class discussions. So students prefer interactive activities inside the classroom. And the implication of this is that Students want structure and interaction, not independence alone. So autonomy doesn't mean there is no teacher, but it means supported participation. But liking an activity doesn't always make students feel successful. So how do students perceive their achievement in the classroom? Um, Students reported that they have significant or fully achieved their goals at 43%. 29.3% said they experienced some progress, and 27.7% said they experienced minimal or no progress at all. So the concerning issue here is that nearly almost 1 in 3 motivated learners experience or do not experience rather meaningful progress. So being motivated doesn't mean successful, which brings us therefore to the key question on what actually predicts motivation. What I meant to say was what best predicts achievement and not motivation. So, what links to students' success or progress? In our study, we used correlational analysis, not cause and effect, but rather we looked into what moves together. According to the result, motivation is correlated at 0.34, while metacognitive strategies were higher at 0.41. However, the challenges that students face in learning has a negative impact on their progress, which is at 0.28, which indicates that the more challenges that the students face in their learning, the less likely they feel that they are progressing. So the key message here is how students learn matters most, but even motivated learners can be held back by the challenges that they face in learning. Now, rather than leaving this as statistics, let me summarize to you what learning looks like for students. For students, future goals spark drive, and what sustains their effort is their emotional engagement to what they are doing in the classroom. Planning and monitoring guide what they do, the actions that they do in the classroom. And what builds their progress is that they are aware of what kind of strategies that they need to do in order for them to tackle the tasks that they are assigned to do in the classroom. And when they build their progress, of course, naturally, their confidence strengthens or heightens. In other words, therefore, for students, motivation initiates their learning, but strategy use sustain it. So, what can we do as teachers in order for us to be able to sustain that learning? We can do these things in the classroom. We can design goal-oriented tasks, tasks that actually cater to achieving the goals set by our students. We can address burnt out and fear of failure. And then we can help foster supportive classroom relationships. And we should make, reflection a habit. And more importantly, we should make the students feel that it is okay to commit mistakes, that it is okay to struggle in their learning. And finally, we should teach them explicitly how to use metacognitive strategies. So in short, therefore, we should teach students how to learn and not only what to learn. Finally, let me leave you with this final thought. I say motivation opens the door, but metacognitive strategies help English learners walk through that door. Thank you very much. I am now ready for your questions.